Texas, 1887. The Texas Trail stretched like a faded scar across the dry earth, disappearing into the low, burning horizon. The sun sagged heavy in the west, a molten copper coin bleeding orange across the sky. Dust whispered along the wagon ruts, curling around prickly sagebrush and broken fence posts. The air held that brittle, waiting stillness, the kind that made animals burrow deep and men ride fast. But not everyone made it off this road. In the dirt ahead, two small figures lay crumpled by the wayside like discarded rag dolls, frail, sunburnt, dust-caked. A boy no older than 7, a girl, perhaps 4, their faces blistered, lips cracked, eyes closed but fluttering faintly with breath, skin the color of ash under the grit. Buzzards circled overhead, shadows crawling across the ground like specters. And still the wagons rolled by. Riders kept their eyes fixed ahead. Hooves clicked, wheels creaked, spurs jingled. But no one stopped. No one ever did. Her name was Clara Boone, late 20s, broad shoulders, wiry frame, auburn hair tucked beneath a weather-beaten Stetson. Her boots were scuffed raw at the toes, her duster coat stiff with dust and trail grime. Saddlebags slumped near empty on her bay mare's flanks, and the Winchester rifle strapped across her saddle was more for looks than loaded these days. Her eyes, well, they carried more weight than the saddlebags. Eyes of a woman who'd seen loss ride in like a storm and never quite watched it leave. Behind her, the memories still clung. A family ranch choked by drought, creditors circling like buzzards, and the shallow grave of a baby brother the fever took when no one came to help. Ahead of her, nothing but the faded promise of Dry Hollow, another dust-bitten frontier town, clinging to life on the edge of nowhere. Maybe work waited there. Maybe just another reason to keep breathing. The horse's ears pricked forward. Clara's gaze drifted to the roadside and froze. The children. Tight shot. Clara reins in the mare. They barely looked alive. Skin blistered, limbs limp, dirt caked in their eyelashes. The boy's small chest rose and fell in shallow gasps. The girl clung to him even in sleep, frail fingers curled tight in his shirt. Clara's jaw tightened. Her calloused hands gripped the reins. Keep riding. It wasn't her fight. Wasn't her problem. Folks die out here every day. Kids, too. She couldn't save 'em all. Hell, most couldn't even save themselves. The mare shifted under her, sensing her hesitation. But Clara, her mind wasn't on the road anymore. Flashback. 5 years earlier, a small cabin on the plains. Her brother Daniel, just a boy of 6, burning up with prairie fever. Her mama's cries. Her father riding for the doctor, but no one came. Neighbors passed by, heads down, eyes averted. Daniel died before morning. No one stopped then. Back to present. Clara swung her leg over the saddle and dismounted. Her boots hit the dirt with a puff of dust. Against every ounce of hardened instinct she'd built in a hard, cruel world, she knelt beside the boy. "Hey, little one, can you hear me?" The boy's eyelids fluttered weakly. His voice, cracked and faint, barely made it past parched lips. "They left us. Mama is gone." The words hit her like a boot to the ribs. She pressed her hand gently to the girl's cheek, burning hot with fever, skin peeling from sun exposure. A low rumble approached, wheels crunching gravel, hooves pounding the road. Broad-shouldered, leathery-faced, with a mean set to his jaw and cattle dust streaking his clothes. Ezekiel Rowe, driving his cattle east with a half-dozen other trail hands strung out behind him. He slowed just enough to sneer down from his seat. "Ain't your problem, miss," he drawled, chewing on a toothpick. "World's full o' orphans these days. You start collectin' every stray pup, you'll starve for winter." The other men chuckled under their breath, eyes hard and unfeeling. Clara stood, meeting Rose's gaze. Her shoulders were small, but squared like iron. "Keep movin'," she said, voice low, sharp as barbed wire. Rose spat a wad of tobacco near her boots, clicked his horses on, and the wagon creaked off, dust rolling in its wake. From her saddlebag, she pulled the last of her bread, stale but edible, and her canteen, nearly dry. She pressed water to the boy's lips first, his throat bobbing weakly as he drank. Then the girl, limp, feverish but breathing. "Matthew," the boy whispered when she asked his name. "My sister, Annie." Clara's throat clenched. She tucked the canteen away and scanned the road. Empty, silent. The sun dipped lower, bleeding the horizon red. Predators would come. Coyotes, snakes, worse things than wolves. "All right, Matthew," she muttered, standing. "We ain't dying on this damn road." She lifted Annie first, featherlight, limp like a rag doll, settling her across the saddle. Matthew, weak but clutching her waist, climbed after. Clara mounted behind them, steadying both with an arm, boots snug in the stirrups. The mare shifted uneasily, but Clara clicked her tongue. The horizon rumbled. Low thunder, dark clouds coiling on the edges of the plains. The smell of rain rode the wind. Nightfall, storm, predators, man versus nature, and it wasn't a fair fight. Clara pressed her heels to the mare's sides. "Hold on, little ones," she whispered. They rode hard toward the dark hills beyond the plain, toward faint hope or more trouble yet unseen. The hills rose jagged and stubborn from the plains, dark silhouettes against the bruised sky. Thunder rolled heavy in the distance, and lightning flashed, twisting the clouds into restless knots of black and gray. The mare climbed steady but anxious along the narrow trail, hooves slipping on loose rock, her breath coming in nervous puffs. Clara Boone's arms ached from holding the children steady, but she didn't loosen her grip. Not now, not with the storm brewing behind them and no shelter in sight. Then she saw it, nestled at the base of a rocky outcrop. Weather-beaten, leaning like a drunkard, half its roof sagging, stood an old line shack, probably built by cattle drivers years back and forgotten since. It wasn't much, but it was walls, a roof, a fighting chance. Clara nudged the mare forward. The place smelled of old wood, dust, and the faintest trace of animal musk. Cobwebs clung to the corners. The single cot was missing half its stuffing, and a cracked window let in the whimper of the rising wind. But Clara didn't care. She laid Annie gently on a moth-eaten blanket, the girl's small frame burning with fever. Matthew curled beside his sister, eyes glassy with exhaustion. Clara pulled her last canteen, giving them each a sip. Her supplies were nearly gone, water, food, medicine, all of it dwindling to nothing. A gust rattled the door. The storm was closing in fast. She unrolled her bedroll by the fire pit, striking a match to kindle what little warmth she could. Then a sound, a scuff of boot on stone. Soft, deliberate. Clara's hand went to her Winchester. "You shouldn't be out here, not alone. Storm's bad. Worse things in the dark." The voice was low, measured. It came from the shadows by the doorway. Clara stood, rifle raised, body tense as a coiled spring. A man stepped into the flickering light, mid to late 20s, broad-shouldered, lean, with dark braids hanging past sharp cheekbones. His eyes, quiet, steady, the kind that had seen too much and learned to trust too little. Worn buckskin shirt, a hunting bow slung over his shoulder, a knife at his belt. Apache. Clara's pulse kicked up. The frontier taught suspicion. Settlers whispered fears of the wild tribes, the old grudges, the bloodshed. But Nakoa didn't look like a raider. He looked like a ghost walking through a land that no longer welcomed him. Tense moment. Sizing each other up, Clara didn't lower the rifle. "I ain't looking for trouble," she warned. Nakoa's expression barely shifted. Neither am I. But trouble's out there. Storm. Wolves. Men worse than either. They stood locked in wary silence. Wind clawed at the shack, making the wood creak. The children stirred weakly. Annie whimpered. Clara's shoulders dropped a fraction. Exhaustion gnawed at the edges of her resolve. They're sick, she admitted, voice raw. Heat stroke. Starvin'. Aye. Her throat tightened. I don't got much left to help em. Nakoa's eyes drifted to the children. A shadow of something, regret, memory, crossed his face. I have herbs, he said simply. Not much. Enough. Clara hesitated, then nodded once. By firelight, Nakoa crushed dried leaves, explaining their uses in quiet, patient tones. Fever reducer. Rehydration. Clara worked beside him, eyes wary but softening. Between instructions, fragments of their stories slipped free, hesitant, brittle as dry twigs. Nakoa's family gone. Soldiers took them during the last Apache roundup. He doesn't linger on the details, but pain flickers behind his stoicism. Can't say I trust settlers, he admits, voice flat. Clara snorts, under her breath. Can't say I blame ya. She shares her own scars in return. A ranch lost to drought and debt. A brother buried on a hill. No one stopped to help. The bitterness of learning that out here, mercy's rarer than rainfall. Nakoa nods. This land, it don't care if you're white. Apache rich or broke. It takes what it wants. Clara stares into the fire. Ain't that the truth? Lightning splits the sky. Thunder crashes, so close the shack shudders. Rain hammers the warped roof. Wind shrieks through the cracks. Inside, Matthew's fever worsens. His skin slick with sweat, eyes rolling back. Annie cries, weak little sobs that tear at Clara's chest. Panic rises like bile. Damn it. Clara presses a cloth to Matthew's forehead. He's burning up. Nakoa's voice stays steady. More water. Cool his skin. They work together, tending the boy, whispering reassurances, fighting the creeping dread. Outside, another sound joins the storm. A low, guttural howl. The howls multiply. 3, for maybe more. Drawn by the scent of weakness. Easy prey. Clara loads her rifle. Her hands shake, but her aim is true. Nakoa readies his bow. The arrow's sharp, fletched with raven feathers. They crouch by the window, eyes scanning the dark beyond the firelight. Shadows slink between the rocks, glinting eyes, the soft scrape of claws on stone. But the wolves, they hesitate. 2 humans, fire, weapons. They linger, then fade into the storm. For now, emotional turning point, quiet vulnerability. Clara sags back against the wall, rifle in her lap. The tension ebbs, leaving only fatigue and unspoken fears. The children sleep, restless but alive. Nakoa adds wood to the fire. A long silence, then Clara speaks. I almost rode past Am. Nakoa glances her way. Why didn't you? She swallows, jaw tight. My brother, Daniel. Fever took him when he was little. Folks passed by. Never stopped. I ain't like em. Nakoa studies her for a long moment. You're stubborn. A faint, tired smile ghosts her lips. Ain't much else left to be. For the first time, the space between them feels less guarded. Not safe, not yet, but not hostile either. The storm clears with the gray light of dawn. Puddles glisten among the rocks. The air smells sharp and clean, the earth washed raw. Inside the shack, Annie stirs, eyes fluttering open. Matthew's fever has broken. He's weak, but breathing steady. Clara exhales slow, relief uncoiling in her chest. Nakoa kneels by the doorway, packing his things. You headin' out? She asks. He looks toward the distant hills, the wide, merciless plains beyond. Then back to the children. They won't make it to Dry Hollow alone. Clara arches a brow. We, huh? Nakoa's mouth twitches in what might almost be a smile. Storm's over, but trouble's still out there. Clara shoulders her rifle. Ain't that always the case? Together, they pack the mare. Two wary strangers, now uneasy allies, ready to face the next stretch of hard road. The town of Dry Hollow sat crouched at the base of the barren hills like a scab on the land, rough and mean, slapped together with weather-worn timber and iron nails that had long since rusted. A crooked saloon leaned beside a trading post, their signs creaking in the wind. Dust hung heavy in the air, stirred by boots, hooves, and wagon wheels. It wasn't a place for the soft-hearted or slow-footed. As Clara Boone rode in, the townsfolk watched. A lone woman, two frail children slumped across her saddle, an Apache scout at her side. Suspicion rolled through the streets like tumbleweed. Ezekiel Rowe stood outside the saloon, a bottle dangling from his hand, his cattlemen lounging nearby. Their laughter cut off the moment they spotted Clara. Whispers started like wildfire. Ain't that the Boone girl? Heard she stole them kids. Sick lookin'. Probably plague or cholera. That Apache? Trouble, plain as day. Rose's eyes glinted mean as rattlesnake glass. Clara's gut tightened. Keep ridin', Nakoa murmured low beside her. But Clara's gaze flicked to the children, Matthew, pale but clinging weakly to her coat, Annie, feverish in her arms. No time for pride. The doctor's shack sat on the far end of town. The sign read Harlan, surgeon in peeling letters. The building looked as tired as the man himself. Doc Harlan, 50-something, broad, grizzled, with a scar down one cheek and the look of a man who'd seen his fair share of death, stepped onto the porch as they approached. His eyes drifted over the children, the Apache, Clara's worn face. He sighed. Well, hell, he muttered. Bring him inside. The shack smelled of antiseptic, old whiskey, and faded misery. Harlan worked quick, checking pulses, examining pupils, feeling foreheads. Heat stroke, dehydration. The girl's burnin' with fever, but they ain't beyond Savon, he said, pouring water into cups. Clara exhaled. Nakoa stood by the door, silent but watchful. Harlan's eyes flicked to him. Your friend draws eyes in this town. And Boone. Rose stirrin' up a hornet's nest. Talks ugly. Folks claimin' you snatched them kids. Sayin' they're sick. Bad for business. Clara's jaw clenched. They were dyin' on the road. Ain't my fault no one else gives a damn. Harlan's gaze softened, but his warning stayed sharp. Dry Hollow ain't kind to strangers. Less kind to women standin' tall. And damn sure ain't kind to Apache. A long pause. You fixin' to stay? Clara looked to the sleeping children. Her shoulders squared. Long as I gotta. Nightfall. Tense streets, brewing showdown. The town drank, gambled, fought. Shadows spilled across the alleyways. Rowe and his men lurked near the saloon, half-drunk, itching for a fight. Their whispers carried. Filth, slurs, lies. Clara could feel the heat of their stares, even inside the doctor's shack. By sundown, she couldn't sit still. Watch, she told Nakoa, nodding to the kids. Where you goin'? To settle it. Nakoa didn't argue, just handed her the rifle. Outside the saloon, climactic confrontation. The wooden sidewalk groaned under Clara's boots. Rowe stepped forward, bottle dangling, eyes gleaming cruel. Thought you'd ride on by now, Boone. This town don't need your strays or your charity. His men fanned out behind him. Hands near holsters, eyes mean. World don't work that way. Rowe sneered. You coddle weakness. You drag us all down. Them kids, they slow you. That Injun, he'll get you killed. Clara's voice cut clean through the night. World only don't work that way, 'cause men like you made it so. A tense silence. Hands hovered over gun belts. Rose's smirk twisted. Guess I'll teach you how the world really works, darlin'. That guns flashed. Rose pistol cracked. Clara dove behind barrels as bullets splintered wood. From the alley, a dark figure moved. Nakoa. Silent as smoke, he loosed an arrow. It struck a cattleman's shoulder, sending him sprawling. Clara popped up, rifle steady, fired. Another man dropped. Roe cursed, ducking behind a post. The townsfolk gathered, some cheering, some too scared to move. Clara reloaded, scanning the shadows. Nakoa moved like a ghost. Precise, swift, another arrow finding its mark. Roe's men faltered, caught off guard by the unexpected alliance. Clara's eyes locked on Roe, furious, determined. She fired. The bullet clipped his thigh, spinning him down with a howl of pain. The street fell quiet. Roe groaned, clutching his leg, his men scattered. Nakoa emerged from the shadows, calm, watching the last of the threat slink away. Doc Harlan approached, wiping his hands on a rag. "Takes guts and compassion to stop on that road," he remarked, glancing at the children safe inside. His eyes swept the watching townsfolk. "Might be more of us need rememberin' that." The crowd's mood shifted, suspicion thinning, replaced by reluctant respect. No cheers, but no more jeers either. Inside, Matthew and Annie slept, pale but breathing, safe in clean blankets. Nakoa leaned by the window, his bow resting beside him. Clara stood at the doorway, staring out at the bruised sky. Her fingers traced the rifle stock absently. Nakoa's voice broke the silence. "You could have left them." Clara's gaze didn't waver. "Plenty o' broken things in this world," she said softly. "Guess it's up to stubborn fools like us to fix what little we can." Their eyes met, trust not yet whole, but forming. A fragile thread, pulled tight by shared hardships. No promises, just understanding. The town settled into uneasy quiet. Clara exhaled, her gaze lifting toward the dark, uncertain horizon. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel entirely alone. In a land where mercy is scarce, and most ride fast past suffering, one woman chose to stop. She didn't have wealth, she didn't have power, but she had grit and a heart that wouldn't stay hardened forever. On the wild frontier, it isn't the strongest or the cruelest who change the course of fate. It's the stubborn few who refuse to look away. Music swells soft, hopeful strings rising. If this story gripped your heart, if it reminded you that even in the harshest places, hope can ride in on tired boots and worn saddles, then saddle up with us. Hit that like button, subscribe for more true frontier tales, and share your thoughts below. We tell stories for the ones who never got to tell theirs. Until next time, ride safe and keep your heart open.